Scottsdale, Arizona, once a tiny suburb of Phoenix, was incorporated in 1951 with a population of 2,000, a land area of 1 square mile, and the slogan, "The West's Most Western Town." In 1964, Scottsdale created a refuse division and began providing municipal refuse collection service to its residents. At the time, the only way to collect refuse from residential households was by hand. Worldwide, the state-of-the-art technology in the solid waste industry consisted of used rear-end loaders with crews ranging from 2 to 5 employees who manually loaded refuse into the collection vehicle. Scottsdale chose to use a recent innovation in the solid waste industry called the train system. This consisted of a pickup truck with a removable bed that pulled 4 open box trailers, otherwise known as the train. Each trailer was filled by hand, unhooked and emptied by a front-end loader. Once emptied, the trailers were hooked back together and the driver and his 2-man crew were back on their route. Compared to rear-end loaders, the train system dramatically increased productivity to over 90 tons per man per month. Workers could load from both sides at the same time and there was no waiting for a packer blade to clear a hopper. The train system also proved to be a very reliable, reasonably inexpensive, and low-maintenance method of collecting the community's garbage. As with all manual collection systems, Scottsdale's system had a number of inherent problems. In this labor-intensive business, there was a high rate of employee turnover, 91% in 1968. The work was physically demanding, the industrial injury rates were extremely high, wages for manual laborers were very low, and image was a problem. Manual refuse collection left the alleys littered with debris, and a menagerie of homeowner-supplied containers. Sanitary conditions were marginal at best because many residents stored their garbage in containers with poorly fitting lids, or no lids at all, in temperatures exceeding 100 degrees. The community's quality of life suffered as a result. Mark Strager, appointed Scottsdale's Public Works Director in 1964, was the driving force behind Scottsdale's efforts to improve residential collection technology. With summer temperatures in the alleys often exceeding 120 degrees, collecting garbage was a struggle for city workers. Turnover rates were very high, as some new employees would quit before completing their first day of work. Mark would often go and work alongside the collection employees. This first-hand look at the oppressive working conditions made him even more determined to find a better way to collect residential garbage. The tasks at hand were now A. Construct a fully mechanized collection vehicle, B. Design and obtain suitable standardized containers, and C. Determine the community's degree of acceptance to this new way to dispose of their refuse. Mark Strager had previously drawn up blueprints for a mechanical grabber which he presented to the city's fleet maintenance division. The grabbers would be built and attached to a standard forklift frame, and the whole assembly would be mounted on the front of one of the city's front loaders that was earmarked for retirement. The forklift frame would be mounted sideways to the front of the truck. The forklift part of the assembly would allow the driver to move the grabbers to the side to engage a container located to the right of the vehicle's front fender. He would then bring it back to the center of the truck and dump it the same as a front loader would dump a metal commercial bin. The driver could set the can back in place and continue on his route without backing up. Mechanic Chuck Kalinowski was assigned the task of building the grabbing mechanism. As work progressed, things didn't always go as intended. On one of those days, Chuck was verbally venting his frustration and called what he was building a darn monster, a Godzilla. Mark happened to be standing close by and overheard Chuck's tirade. From that point forward, the mechanized truck was known as Godzilla. The shipment of containers arrived at the end of June 1969, and they were placed in the field during the month of July. On August 1st, 1969, Godzilla made its debut on a collection route. The very first container slipped through the grabbers into the hopper of the truck. For the next 6 months, countless modifications and repairs were performed on Godzilla to keep it on the road. There was no backup vehicle for Godzilla, and because it was designed to service commercial bins, it took about 30 seconds to empty just one container. As a result, city solid waste and fleet maintenance personnel often worked 7 days a week to keep Godzilla running and collecting the experimental route. During the 6-month test period, the local media regularly printed information keeping the public up to date on the progress of the project. Analysis following the completion of Phase 1 of the experiment produced the following conclusions. Mechanization was not only feasible, but actually economical for alley collections. Godzilla was too slow on 80s. The most effective service combinations were 80-gallon containers serviced twice weekly for street service and shared 300-gallon containers serviced twice weekly for alley service. And finally, resident complaints received from the test neighborhoods were greatly reduced when compared to the number received prior to the demonstration period. In fact, 94% of the test neighborhoods residents said the city was doing an excellent job of collecting refuse in a post-Phase 1 survey, compared to only 60% when manual collection was provided. Throughout the 6-month test period, residents routinely would line the alleys to watch Godzilla gobble up their trash. The city received numerous calls from other residents inquiring as to when their area would receive barrels for trash collection. The results from the test period proved that not only did the community accept the idea of mechanized collection, but that it was actually popular. Through evaluation, it was determined that Phase 1 of the project was successful. That meant Scottsdale could begin Phase 2. Phase 2 of the project called for the development of a more sophisticated collection vehicle, the barrel snatcher, to improve productivity and reduce collection costs. George Morrison of Western Body and Hoist came up with the design for the vehicle and began its construction. The vehicle would be set up similarly to a Westco Jet front loader with a Diamond Rio chassis, a 37-yard Packer body, and a telephone booth style cab. The truck would be equipped with an 8-foot telescoping lift arm. The lift arm could swing on a pivot from side to side and extend to 12 feet in length. The grabbers would be built to engage and grab a 300-gallon container or an 80-gallon container with an adapter added. The barrel snatcher would be the first of its kind in the world, a fully automated vehicle designed specifically to service a standardized, mechanized residential collection route. It arrived in August of 1970, and in an effort to maintain the high rate of favorable public interest in the project, the city heavily publicized the advancement to Phase 2. It also traded on the popularity of Godzilla by naming the first truck from the next generation of mechanized trucks the Son of Godzilla. When the Son of Godzilla, truck number 254, was put into service, Godzilla was left in service in a backup capacity. Before long, it was found that, like its predecessor, 254 was also too slow and too cumbersome to be productive servicing 80 gallons on the street. In order to maintain the existing routes, Scottsdale's only rear loader was fitted with a pneumatic yoke designed by Mark Strager. The yoke could pivot and empty 80-gallon containers into the hopper. The 80 gallons had to be manually pushed into the yoke and removed when emptied. This vehicle was modified to provide a second backup truck. The Son of Godzilla had numerous design problems that required numerous repairs and modifications, causing a significant amount of downtime. Godzilla, on the other hand, was just plain worn out and could rarely go an entire day without needing repairs. Realizing that it needed a permanent solution for the 80-gallon street routes, Scottsdale submitted another grant request to the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. Money from this grant would be used to develop and test a truck called the Litter Pig, which would specialize in collecting street routes and replace the Son of Godzilla, and a mobile transfer station called the Trash Hog. Western Body and Hoist agreed to help design and build both of these vehicles. Although Scottsdale did not intend to be in the truck building business for most of the 70s, the disinterest displayed by the equipment manufacturers made it necessary. Because of Scottsdale's persistence, Mark Strager's innovative leadership, and the effort of Scottsdale's employees, a new and higher standard of technology would be established for the solid waste industry. By pioneering the mechanization of residential refuse collection, Scottsdale not only improved conditions for its solid waste collection personnel, but the community as well. Solid waste collection personnel were no longer manual laborers, but skilled equipment operators whose salaries reflect the skill required to operate mechanized equipment. Working conditions improved tremendously, from laboring in the heat and cold to sitting in an air-conditioned cab with AM/FM radio. Industrial injuries changed from being a routine occurrence using manual collection to a virtually non-existent occurrence with mechanized collection. In 1973, the 9 employees on the 3 remaining manual collection routes had 18 industrial injuries between them during a 6-month period. Today, industrial injuries are a rarity to employees using mechanized equipment. Productivity has increased from 90 tons per month per man for manual collection to over 270 tons per man per month today. The alleys and streets of the community are cleaner and more sanitary as a variety of small and unsightly and filthy garbage cans with sharp metal edges and poorly fitting lids have been replaced. Standardized plastic containers are preferred by residents because they are more sanitary, more visually pleasing, and safer for collection employees and residents alike to handle. Today, hundreds of cities across the country use automated residential collection systems, as well as cities in Australia, New Zealand, Germany, Sweden, Finland, and Canada. Not too often does the effort of the public sector at the municipal level have such a major impact of an entire industry. For his contribution to the solid waste industry, and for his role in helping Scottsdale pioneer mechanized residential collection, Mark Strager was elected unanimously to the Environmental Industries Association Hall of Fame. There undoubtedly have been many worthwhile public works projects completed in Arizona over the last century. What was accomplished in Scottsdale certainly has to rank high among these projects, as the advancement in residential collection technology has improved the environment in communities locally, statewide, nationwide, and even worldwide.